Almost done. I'm sure you certainly have enough room for dessert, don't you? Scrap. Knockout picked up the dish and walked back over to the side, picking up the fourth and final dish. For dessert, he started, his voice betraying a threat of danger. He placed the dish in front of the larger and held onto the lid. We have that disgusting femme who tried to stick her filthy little claws into you. The lid was pulled off. Breakdown couldn't help the scared gasp that left him. Arachnid's severed head was settled in the middle of the plate, her half-lidded dimmed optics gazing downwards. Surrounding it were the tips of her extra legs and 5 white spheres, and the blue van quickly realized what they were. Sparks. I heard that if you were to consume another spark, you could see a few moments from their life. Could we test that out? The medic grabbed one of the sparks and without further ado shoved it into Breakdown's mouth, ignoring the choking sounds. Just eat and you can tell me who you think it might have belonged to. Might as well. He'll probably tear my spark out if I don't. Breakdown hesitantly bit down, feeling a bizarre energy fill his mouth, a haze crawling slowly into his processor. With that haze, images started to trickle in, so unfamiliar to him. The large Decepticon could only keep on chewing the spark, trying his hardest to ignore the pieces of metal and crystal that were cut in his tongue, and finally managed to swallow, feeling the tiny bits of shrapnel slithering down his throat, the haze fully wrapping around his processor. He couldn't keep any of the images out, finding himself in another mech's place. A tall purple seeker barking out orders. 2 slender mechs perched on top of a tower, looking down on a group of medics. Megatron holding his hand out, a slim hand taking hold. A dark orange seeker, coughing up energon, shrapnel embedded in his abdomen. A red Autobot collapsing into a puddle of his energon. Knockout trembling, holding a scratch on his shoulder. Wait. That scene he definitely remembered. He and Knockout had encountered the Autobots after the medic had kidnapped a human, and the whole ordeal ended with his friend having one of his doors ripped off and his finish scratched. A few more familiar scenes briefly flashed in his optics, each one increasing in sharpness and whispers stirring up with the images. The testing of the Energon harvester, Starscream being knocked out of the air by a newly awakened Megatron, and a shard of dark energon being tossed into Skyquake's grave. But one more unfamiliar scene played out. It was a dark room, and tied on one side was a Vcon screaming out, "Commander!" and "Let him go," only for the red mech in front to chuckle darkly. Knockout. The Aston Martin turned around with his laser scalpel in his hand, and a demented smile on his face. He approached Breakdown and reached out, grabbing his tongue. The next few words sent shivers down his spinal struts, embedding themselves into his memory. Breakdown hated your voice, Starscream. I'll make him happy by tearing your fragging tongue out. The images stopped, throwing Breakdown back into his own body. He panted quietly, looking back up at Knockout, who appeared to have been waiting patiently for him to snap back into reality. So, he started off, who do you think that might have been? Breakdown tried to take a breath, the experience still muddling his mind and being painfully surreal. I think, he began, his head still lurching from what he had seen. I think it was Starscream. Knockout smiled. Is that so? So it is true. He placed a servo on top of Arachnid's head, looking down at her with disdain. Maybe we can move on to the main part of dessert. Just looking at this wench makes me sick. With that, he grabbed hold of the femme's head and took the top of it off. Breakdown couldn't help but let a few shudders run through him as he barely suppressed the urge to purge his tanks right there and then. He peered in and saw that thin cables and circuits were mixed up, coated in some sort of golden, sticky glaze. I'll admit, I took some creative liberties with this one, Knockout explained, taking up the fork and jabbing it into the mess of cables. I found a substance that humans call sugar, and it's supposed to be used to make food sweeter. So combine that with some oil and mix it with Arachnid's processor while heating, and this was the result. I wonder if it tastes as good as it looks. He pulled out a large bundle of cabling and shoved the golden mass into Breakdown's mouth. The taste was impossible to ignore. The sweetness was completely mind-numbing and made the van sick to the core. He tried to chew through the mass, only for most of it to stick to his denta and make it even harder to get through. He tried to finish it as quickly as he could, but it felt more like an eternity when he was finally able to swallow the disgusting sweetness. He tried to take a breath, only for another forkful to be stuffed into his mouth, starting the process all over again. He wanted to spit it out and shout at Knockout to let him go and leave him alone forever, but one look into those red and black optics stopped him. They still held that edge of dominance and promised pain if the narcissist didn't get what he wants. A few more clicks and Breakdown finished again, feeling the stickiness crawl down his throat, trying to stick in him for as long as possible. He started coughing, prompting Knockout to place a servo on his back and rub calming circles. "You okay? Maybe you ate too quickly," he stated with a tiny smile. "Well, I'm glad you like dessert. Actually, did you enjoy the whole meal? Did you?" The servo on the larger mech's back curled into a fist, claws scratching the surface and causing tiny beads of energon to appear. Yes, Breakdown lied. It was delicious. Thank you for the meal." Knockout laughed cheerfully. "I'm glad you loved it." "Oh, Breakdown, you're just such a perfect mech." He pulled away and grabbed the final dish, setting it to the side with the other monstrosities. "So that's the meal and date over. How about we have a drink just to finish it all off?" "Oh, for the love of Primus, can't this just be over and done already?" "Sure, I'm a little thirsty," Breakdown answered, praying that the drink wasn't going to be another horrible, disgusting surprise. "Anything in particular, Knockout?" "Just some special energon." The medic pulled out 2 glasses and a bottle of pure, glowing energon. He set down the glasses and opened the bottle, pouring in the blue liquid into the both of them. Setting down the bottle, Knockout picked up both glasses and held one to Breakdown's lips. The larger mech opened his mouth, with no hesitation this time, and let the sweet, crisp energon flow down his throat. It was such a welcome change from the disgusting taste that had been forced upon him, and it tasted all the more sweeter. But there was another minute flavor to it, but he couldn't tell what it was. All too soon, the glass was empty and pulled away from his lips, one tiny droplet slipping down his chin to join the bitter mess there. Knockout just looked at the larger mech and sipped at his glass. "You wanted to say something?" he suddenly asked, his tone unreadable. "You've been looking at me in a strange way, so I assumed that there was something that you wanted to tell me." Breakdown wanted the floor to swallow him up there and then. He was stuck. If he asked what he wanted to know, then there was a chance of him getting killed. But if he tried to get out of it and say that he didn't have anything to say, then that would surely lead to his death. "Actually, yeah, I wanted to ask you something." "Why?" Breakdown began. Might as well say it. "Why did you do this? When you had gotten me to eat Starscream's spark, I saw you declaring that you wanted to make me happy. Is that why you killed everyone else? If not, then why did you? Tell me!" Knockout's optics narrowed, only to open up again. "I think it was obvious, Breakdown." His voice was neutral, yet sounded as if it were on the brink of anger or sadness. He took a massive swig of energon. "I did it to make you happy. All because I love you." The van froze. "You... what?" "I... love... you." Knockout clenched the glass in his servo. "I loved you since I met you, and I just wanted you for myself. But everyone else was getting in the way." Crack! The glass shattered in pieces, sending fragments and the remaining energon tumbling to the floor. "I wanted to have you out of harm's way. And then that whole incident with Mech happened, and I vowed to protect you from everyone and everything." The Aston Martin walked closer to Breakdown and took his face into both of his servos, looking down at the larger with sad optics. "I also saw that everyone wanted you one way or another, or just made you so unhappy. Megatron always sent you out on missions that could have killed you. Starscream treated you like scrap and wouldn't keep his mouth shut. Soundwave always lurked around spying on you, An arachnid? Don't get me started on that vile, disgusting psychopath! I even started doing little things to make sure you knew how I felt about you. I always asked about how you were and what you were feeling. I gave you your morning energon, little things like that, but I wanted to make a grander gesture, something to prove beyond a doubt that I love you. Knockout seated himself in Breakdown's lap, never once breaking his gaze. So I came up with this. It was brilliant. I could prove my love and get rid of the others in one go, but I wanted to top it all off with one tiny gesture. That energon we just drank, that was mine, straight from my veins. Breakdown wanted to try and get away from Knockout, but with the strap still in place, he was trapped until his partner decided to let him go. Are you serious? You went through all this? Just to... The ex-Stunticon couldn't finish what he was about to say, as the Nemedic's lips were sealed upon his, gentle yet firm. The kiss was surprisingly pleasant, even though Knockout seemed a little too eager and tried to deepen it further. After a few clicks, he finally pushed away and laid his head on Breakdown's shoulder, his expression more calm. Breakdown, I want to know. Do you love me? He asked quietly. Please, tell me. Do you love me? The larger Decepticon didn't answer. He wanted to be friends with Knockout, but he didn't love him. Never would. Knockout. I